And our speaker today is somebody who has become quite close. Someone I admire greatly, someone who has been a minister for a very long time, and who brings light, love, and compassion to all that she does. She brings her service and she brings her sense of family and community to this center. And I'm so grateful now to know that she is here today. She looks wonderfully Western. You know, I grew up with the movies where everybody was going to die with their boots on. What I'd like you to do right now is welcome somebody who lives a rich and wonderful life with her boots on. Oh my gosh. Make up your mind what you're doing. The Reverend Joyce Bennett-Hall.
Thank you so much. There's that old joke, don't squat on your spurs. I have something I want. Thank you so much for setting up my talk beautifully. I want to read something to you that I found on the internet. Everything is on the internet, right? It's a little story. It's about a drought. Do we know anything about droughts in California? As the drought continued for what seemed an eternity, a small community of farmers was in a quandary as to what to do. Rain was important to keep their crops healthy and sustain the way of life of the townspeople. As the problem became more acute, a local minister called a prayer meeting to ask for rain. Many people arrived. The minister greeted most of them as they filed in. As he walked to the front of the church to officially begin the meeting, he noticed most people were chatting across the aisles and socializing with friends. When he reached the front, his thoughts were on quieting the people and starting the meeting. His eyes scanned the crowd as he asked for quiet. He noticed an 11-year-old girl, I think there's close to an 11-year-old girl over here, sitting quietly in the front row. Her face was beaming with excitement. Next to her, poised and ready for use, was a bright red umbrella. The little girl's beauty and innocence made the minister smile as he realized how much faith she possessed. No one else in the congregation had brought an umbrella. All came to pray for rain, but the little girl had come expecting God to answer the prayer. I love that. I love that. And what John said, what we say holds power. About 30 years ago, actually it is 30 years ago, 1986, I started to come to the Science of Mind Church, this center, in 1985, actually a little bit toward the end of 85. But in 86, I started to get more involved. My children started to come. My daughter was too young. She was the mascot of the teenage program, but my son was part of the teenage program. And I didn't know a lot of people. I kind of hung back. I tried to take a look at the land, see if I like it there, see if it's for me. And it was. But one Sunday morning, I went to another church that was in Woodland Hills because a friend of mine was the minister, and he was speaking. And at the end of the service, I heard this announcement. Who would like to be part of our project called Project Love? I was like, wow, okay, I love projects. If you know me, you know I love projects. So I said, yeah, let's hear about this. And it was McDonnell Douglas's project where you could choose a Navajo or a Hopi child from the northern Arizona or New Mexico and buy them a Christmas present. I was, oh my God, I want to do that. That's great. So apparently McDonnell Douglas, the CEO at the one time, was driving with his family across Arizona and New Mexico, very desolate land, I might tell you, and ran across this old boarding school, little Navajo school, fell in love with the children, not so much the land, but fell in love with the children, and came home, created a charter, and it became Project Love. And he provided, or his McDonnell Douglas provided, gifts for every Navajo and Hopi child on the reservation in those 4 states through the Bureau of Indian Affairs. So his employees had that opportunity. And they also put it out to churches. So this particular church was part of that. So I took 3 children. I have 2 children, and each one of us bought a gift for the child. And they had a little piece of paper, and they put on it what they wanted. Usually it was school supplies, because they really didn't have the money to buy notebook paper or pencils. So we packaged their package, gave it to the church, off it went. A little while later, I got a phone call and said, "Thank you very much for joining our little project. Would you like to go in and help us deliver these packages?" "Oh, sure, I'll go." I say yes to almost everything. I've gotten myself into a lot of trouble because of that. So yeah, let's go. And so my children back in those days, they didn't have a choice. They had to come with me. So we went, and it was a very desolate, remote area. A lot of people wouldn't go to this particular school, and they told me that. And I said, well, we'll go. Now, unbeknownst to me, and it won't go through all the challenges that laid before me because there's more to the story. I had a little red Toyota, okay? And I'm driving across no roads, sagebrush, snow, ice. Lots of things happened on the way, with my son ending up in the hospital in Flagstaff, but we pulled him out and took him anyway. Can't keep the good, little Toyota down, right? So we got all the way in, we passed out the presents, and I fell in love with these children. They had nothing. Their gifts were pencils and papers. My kids, if they didn't get a huge gift, there was no smile on their face. These kids were so happy and so excited. I fell madly in love. Also fell madly in love with a friend of mine to this day, 30 days later. Hazel is her name, a Navajo lady, a little older than I am. And she had shared with me, I kept seeing on the map on the school board, Arizona, New Mexico, Chicago, Illinois, whatever, with arrows pointing to children. What is that? I found out you could sponsor some children through Futures to help them keep them in school because they quit by the time they're in 6th grade. So I said, I want to do that. So I came home. I was smoking at the time, so I quit smoking. It was $25 a pack. Things have changed, right? It was $25 a month for me. And so I said, each child was $25. So I took 2 children. So $50 a month, pardon me, for smoking. And each child was $25, so I took 2 children. Very, very excited. Had them at my house many, many years. Well, the following year, we used to write letters and send packages, and it was so much fun. So the next year, I got this big, bright idea. I'm going to invite Hazel and the girls that I sponsor, and by that time, there were several people from the center sponsoring some children. I'm going to ask them if they'll come to my home for Christmas. How fun is that? I was renting a big house back then. So it was 11 children and 2 adults, which would be 13 people. That's fine. So I guess if it gets closer to the time, I'm excited. I can't wait for you to come. I said, are you all ready? And Hazel said, yes. I said, okay, now do you know the roads? No. And through the conversation, I found out they had never been off the reservation. They were getting a pickup truck, throwing a mattress in the back, and everybody was going to jump in, and off we go down to California on our freeways, not even knowing where they're going. So my heart sank. I said, oh, this is not a good thing. Let me think about this. Well, remember, I was new to Science of Mind for only about a year. So I thought, okay, I'm going to see if this stuff works. So every day, every morning, back in those days, when you're a virgin to something, you do it better. You really do, Every day I'd get up and I would do my affirmative prayer. I would do my treatment. It was very long. I do much shorter now. And I would write it. Every day I wrote out my treatment. Every day. I have journals of my treatments that I wrote out. And I just prayed. So give me an answer. What's going on? I know they're here. They're safe. They're part of it. All of a sudden, I walk in to church one Sunday, and some of you may know this lady. And a lady came up to me who I did not know. Her name was Ricky Burley. And does anybody remember Ricky Burley? I know Larry probably does. But she said to me, I understand you want to bring some children here. And I said, yes. And she said, my husband has a dealership in Glendale, and he'll donate a van to you, a 15-passenger van. Well, I almost started to cry right then. Right then. She doesn't know me, and she's giving me a brand new 15-passenger van. I drive a Toyota. So I had to go to Glendale, and when I got in this van, you could lay down. It was like a bus. I went, oh my God. And they expected me to back it out of the showroom. So I backed it out of the showroom. I was scared to death, drove home all the way from Glendale. It was pouring down rain. I thought, oh my goodness, just do not crash this van. So getting ready to leave, and I get a call from Candy Rios, if anybody knows her. And her son, Alan Rios, said, I'll go with you. I'm part Native American. What tribe? I don't know, but I just know I'm part of Native American. Okay, so I was grateful to have another person to go with me. So we get in the van. Now I want you to know, again, I have still treating, I'm still affirming, I'm still writing down, because we've got a long way to go. It's a 12-hour drive. So we get into, start going up to 15, if you know that area, and it's closed. So we have to turn around and come back. So there's our first challenge, okay? Go through Palm Springs. It is snowing in Palm Springs. We end up going up to 17 to Flagstaff. We hit a major snowstorm. There's cars all over in ditches. And I said to Alan, you're the guy. You need to be driving this. I'm sliding all over. He goes, no, I was born and raised in California. You would come from Chicago. You should know how to do this. I was like, oh, thank you for coming. So I kept going. So I'm driving, and he is praying out loud. Out loud. I'm not so sure he was treating, but he was praying. So we were sliding, and it was pretty hairy. So we got up to Flagstaff, and as I got onto the 40, there were cars all over. They didn't make the turn. So we kept going, and we got to the reservation. And to make a long story short, we got all the way through the 22-mile dirt road, which was not dirt because it was snow and ice and going around the steer. So it was quite amazing. We got there. We had a lovely dinner that night at Hazel's Sheep House. And that's what it was, is where she kept her sheep. So we got to stay at the sheep house. And she had gathered all the kids and the adults that were there. So we were ready to go the next day. Well, my little girl wasn't there. And I felt sad because I really loved this little girl, and she had nothing. She was poor by reservation standards. So we sat down and we said, we're going to pray. So I led them in affirmative prayer. Remember, I'm a virgin in science of mind, so everybody's going to hear that prayer. So I sat down and I taught them the 5 steps, told them how to affirm it, to acknowledge the infinite. They call it the Great Spirit. So I'm teaching the natives who knew how to pray way before me. So, but they went along with it. And then they did their prayer. And we were sitting on the floor doing this for Lucinda to be able to come with us. So the next morning, we all piled in the van. I'm driving once again. And it's in the dark. I don't even know where I'm going. And you're driving just on land. And I come up against this little tiny hut. And that's where Lucinda lived. So Hazel gets out of the car, and you're supposed to honk a horn. That's the way you acknowledge them. So she tells me to honk the horn, and she goes in, and they must have talked in Navajo, and out Lucinda comes in jeans, a short shirt, and she's got one shirt in her hand. Mom said she could go. And the reason she wasn't going to go is Grandpa just died, and they have rituals that they have to do. And one is they can't leave the reservation. But Mom made an exception because she knew this was such a great chance for her daughter. So off we go. We come here, get home. And you know where Christmas dinner was that day? Then when we got home, a couple days from then, right here at the Center for Spiritual Living. But back then it was called the Westlake Village, a church of religious science. And it was up on the hill. And the entire kitchen. Was anybody here back in 1985? Okay. Well, that year we had Christmas dinner downstairs. And there was also other families who were out that didn't have anybody that joined us. Some were from Russia. And it was just a great, great experience. They were here for 2 weeks. And the point of that part of the story is, if you pray and you do your spiritual mind treatment, I don't care if you call it affirmative prayer, I don't care if you call it a treatment or a journaling prayer, it does work. Thank you, John. It does work. You don't have to know how. You don't have to fight every challenge in your way. I experienced the universe knocking those challenges out of my way. And believe me, I can make the story be 2 hours long for all what we went through. But if you can just know that if you do your spiritual practice, whatever that is for you, and you do your prayer work, and you have challenges going on in your life right now, if you can just have your little red umbrella, knowing like that little girl, she just knew there would be rain. But there's a second part of this story. That taught me a lot about the Navajo people and how they think and how they behave and how they pray. So the next year we went, and there was a couple of us went in, and we brought someone from this center with. His name was Greg Stryker. And again, I don't know if anybody remembers him. And he went with us. And there was just a couple of us. I think there was 4 or 5 of us. And we rented a van. And we thought we would take on 5 families that year. And so a bunch of us threw our money together. We had Hazel give us 5 families. And we bought the turkey and the food and so forth and so on. And when we got there, we did all 5 families. And again, it's not about the 5 families. Each family has a 2-hour story, if you've ever been in that world. It's a third world country in our own world, so in our own country. But on the way back from all the Santa visits, and poor Greg, we had toothpaste all here, and he's crying because toothpaste makes your eyes cry. I didn't know that. And so we had his little eyebrows all full of toothpaste and his little fake beard and everything. And Hazel says, "Can we just stop one more time? There's a family that we found that really has nothing." I'm thinking, if she found a family that really has nothing, we were just at 5 families that had nothing. One family lived in a condemned trailer. So we said, sure. She said, we'd like at least the kids to see Santa. Fine, but we had no toys left. I think we had a couple golden books, and that was it. But we did. We started to go, and it was out in the middle, really, of nowhere, in the middle of nowhere. And again, we're trailing 2 tracks up to wherever, and there's this little shack, and it had no window panes in them. It's they had the plastic flapping out. It was freezing. It was snow and ice on the ground. So we pull up to must have been 15 dogs. They were hungry, they were skinny, they were barking, they were screaming, and we learned to carry dog food. So we poured our dog food all over the ground so all these dogs at least could eat at least for a couple days. So we walked in the door, and it was barren. There was a table that had some chopped wood on it. And there was a little girl standing there that when I looked at her, she was beautiful. She was beautiful. She had to be 5 years old. She had basically nothing on. It was freezing. And in the other room, there were 3 beds. And there was about a 12-year-old boy who had a shirt that came to here, in here. So he was wearing a shirt that didn't even fit him. But the smiles, their eyes, they were so happy to see. They didn't know who we were. Especially, they didn't care about us. It was this guy in the red suit that had toothpaste on his eyebrows. They loved him. So they sat down on Santa's lap, and we gave them a golden book, each one. And I had a Polaroid. This was back in the days of Polaroid cameras. And I gave them a picture of themselves. Well, when we left there, can you imagine how the 5 of us felt? Sick. They had golden books. That's all we gave them. So we pulled our money together. We were real rich. We had 100, in fact, I looked it up today because I wrote this story once. It was $102.50. That's all we had. But we found a trading post, which was about 18 miles from where we were. And we went, we got a turkey, and we got stuffing, and we got cranberry sauce. We got puzzles, we got coloring books, we got crayons, something to give them. So we get back in the car, or the van, and now we're going to go back up there. Santa's going to give them the toys. And Hazel said, we can't go there. Why? Because Grandma's not there. It's a matriarchal society. Grandma is the one that calls the shots. I kind of like that. I like it. I'm a grandma. So, okay, well, where's Grandma? She's blah, blah, blah. So we go, and one of the things I learned when I was there, the directions that you're given, you know, turn where? You know, which bush? So anyway, but after a while you kind of get into their head and see what they're really saying. So we followed some roads and some directions, and that was my first exposure to a sweat lodge. Grandma was in a sweat lodge. She gets up, Hazel gets out of the car, and she goes, and she peeks in this thing, and it's real low, and out comes this elderly lady, and they're both talking, and they both climb into the van. Well, this lady doesn't speak English, so they're both talking in Navajo. I have no idea where we are or why we're there. We picked up Grandma, that's all I know. So now we drive back to the shack, and now the kids see the car. And they know that man with the toothpaste on his eyebrows and that beard and that red suit is coming back. Wow, now they're hanging out the windows. And they were so excited that I felt so excited. So we pulled up and the dogs were still barking and arguing over the food. There was chickens there as well arguing. Chickens were eating the food as well. So we go in and they carry the food in. Santa carries the food in. And now the kids have got coloring books and they've got toys and they've got some things. The light in that house was not from outside. That light that I was seeing was from us all. We were lighting up that house. Those children you could just see the light coming out of them. So we are the light of the world. It just comes out when you're in pure love. So I find out why they're talking. What's going on? Why is Grandma Clay, her name was Grandma Clay, talking? She had been in the prayer ceremony. The medicine man started at 7 a.m. that morning. This is late afternoon by now. Praying just for her, for food for her family. So, she doesn't know where we came from. Did we come out of the earth? She couldn't understand how Anglos, white people, could hear her prayer. How did the Great Spirit manifest us? So we just stood there, and I have to tell you, it was one of my first few times that I could actually see the God within someone. I could see the energy in someone. It was amazing. And what did that tell me? That told me it's not necessarily about my prayer. If I do my spiritual work, if I keep my quality of thought high, if I do my journaling, my prayer work, my treatment, then I'm in alignment with Spirit, the Great Spirit, the universal mind, so that when someone else is praying, my soul gets that. And I am led to be the answer to that person's prayer. So prayer works, whether it's my prayer or whether it's someone else's prayer, whether it's your prayer. Like John said, we don't have to know the details. And believe me, the challenges on that first part of what I was sharing were I couldn't even want to tell you all, because you would have quit. You wouldn't have continued. But God took care of it. The universe took care of it, because I let it go. I just knew. I had my umbrella. I had that red umbrella, and I knew. But the second part, I didn't know. But I got it. So whenever you feel that urge to be of service to someone, to step outside yourself and to help, it's because you're being the answer to someone's prayer. Sherry just collected purses, and whoever donated purses, you're an answer to someone's prayer, to some lady who's in a women's shelter who doesn't have toiletries, but now she's going to have a purse and toiletries. So you don't have to go to the Navajo reservation to be of service to someone. So thank you so much for letting me share my story about my prayer works, your prayer works, and we are answers to each other's prayer. Thank you so much for letting me share this. Now, would you join me in prayer, please? I am so, so grateful. For I know, as everyone else here knows, that no matter what challenge we have in our life, whatever's laying before us right now, whether it's a career issue, health issue, relationship issue, money issue, it doesn't matter. Because when we do our prayer, our treatment, our journaling, and align our thoughts with God and with love and kindness, those challenges fall away. We let the universe do battle for us, not us. So just knowing that gives each of us a grateful heart, and we're ready. We are ready to commit to our spiritual practice daily, weekly, monthly, whichever works for us. We are a heart-centered community. We are a heart-centered spiritual community, inspiring the world through personal transformation. And our personal transformation is getting out of our own way after we do our prayer work and knowing, having faith, carrying that little red umbrella. And that's how we inspire the world. Because when we do it, it just goes forward to everyone else. So I just am so grateful to know this. And I know that right here, right now, every challenge that lies before anyone here is gone. It is gone. It is perfect. The roadway and pathway is clear for each of us. I know that in the mind of God, it is perfect. So with a grateful heart, I release my word to that activity of law, just knowing. And together we say, and so it is.